Make sure we got enough space on the cloud. Okay, welcome ladies. Thank you so much for joining our Learning Pods info session. I'm welcome. Nadia, thanks for joining. We are gonna get started. It's 7:01. I like to be prompt. So I'm just gonna go ahead and get started. If you'd like to introduce yourself in the chat, please do so. And if you have questions while I'm talking, also utilize the chat. And towards the end of the session, when I wrap up, I'll go through and look back at the questions and try to address them as we go. So thank you everyone for coming. Hello, welcome as you join. We are recording the session. Introduce yourself in the chat. Let us know where you're at, how old your kids are, and I am recording the session. Please keep your questions in the chat. And maybe Alex, if you could write that in the chat for me, just that we're recording the session. Alex, can I make you co-host? I don't know what you're like at home, but I'm just going to go ahead and do that, and you can support as much as you can or can't. It's totally fine. But if you could write that in the chat, just as new people join, so I don't have to keep repeating the same thing, drop a line in the chat, let us know who you are, where you're at, and again, keep your questions to the chat for now. We'll get to them after. So, okay, thank you guys for joining. This is a Learning Pods info session. So we're gonna talk about what a pod is, what pods can look like. There's many different modalities and ways to pod. There's different classifications. So it's as customizable as homeschooling. It's very customizable. So we'll go over what that kind of looks like. And then we'll also go over the site, learningpods-canada.com, and how we at Learning Pods intended it to be used for parents and educators that are looking for alternative education at this time. So what is a learning pod? So I don't know what everybody's awareness levels are about what a pod is, but basically a pod is a micro class. It's
Oh.
Sorry, I'm just gonna mute you. Perfect, thank you. It's a micro class. It's a small group of kids coming together to learn outside of a traditional school setting. And so in its rawest form, that's what a pod is, but that's very vague. So like I said, it could really look a lot of ways, because really all it is, like I said, a group of children coming together to learn outside of traditional school. So that can look myriad ways. So we'll go over some of the modalities of what a pod could be. If you're just hopping on, please mute yourselves. That would be awesome. Great. So there's no right or wrong answer on this, but the first, decision to be made is, are you keeping your child enrolled in your district school board, or are you de-enrolling? So you could do a pod either way. You could keep your kids enrolled in the current school board, or you could de-enroll and homeschool. So either of those options are perfectly fine for podding. So oftentimes when parents have older children, they feel intimidated by the curriculum. That's a really good option for parents that don't want to send their kids back but haven't figured out all the answers about homeschooling a teen, may consider staying enrolled in the district school board. And so a pod like that would look like, imagine a group of kids that are all learning on their computers through the district school board, but in a setting where there's a group of kids together doing so. So all the kids involved are on their devices to learn, and in between classes intermittently they can socialize, they can work on their projects together. They have that sort of support. If parents can sort of be present, great. If not, that's okay too. If the kids are doing distance learning, you really just need a support person to be there to watch the kids. They may not necessarily be assisting so much, because the children still do get that online instruction and that ability to interact with their teacher online. Because, distance learning is a very lonely thing for kids. Granted, they are sort of in a classroom setting, but it's virtual, it's remote, it's not the same interaction that you have in person. So there's that element that's lacking. And it can be made up for by just getting together with some other kids learning in that modality to sort of be together and support one another. So that's one really great model. Another model is de-enrolling and homeschooling all together. So in that case, you're in charge of your curriculum. Now, parents who opt to de-enroll their kids have a couple of options for pod modalities. They could hire a facilitator, or they could do a parent-led pod, which could be one parent that mainly runs the pod, or what I like to call a round robin, where different parents play that support role at different times. So those are a few of the modalities. And when you sign up on our site and you're creating your profile, one of the questions is the modality. What modality do you want? And so you can select as many as you want, and you can always edit that. But it just gives other parents a sense of what you're looking for. And it is something that parents need to think about and need to consider. Am I going to utilize the virtual learning given to me by the board or not? And there's no, right or wrong answer on that. It's an individual's comfort level. I would say that you could always choose to go virtual and switch, but I understand school boards are not giving parents that flexibility this year. But I don't know, things can always change as well. Just as people are jumping on, hello, please read the chat. We just left a few notes for everyone in the chat. So go through the chat. We are recording the session, so if you're uncomfortable with that, please feel free to keep your camera off and introduce yourself in the chat and welcome. So I've just been going over different pod modalities. We talked about virtual learning through your school board and coming together on a pod to share your virtual learning modality. We've talked about de-enrolling and what those modalities could look like as you de-enroll. Sorry, I'm just gonna mute people, playing a couple of roles here. I think Alex got it though. And we talked about what that could look like if you're de-enrolling. It could be a parent-led pod. It could be round robin, where parents share that experience. Or it could be where the parents hire a facilitator. Now, even with hiring out, I think there's a lot of options there. Depending on the age of the children, you can really get creative on who you hire to be your teacher. And that's one of the things we take a lot of pride in at Learning Pods, is that we are trying to redefine who can really teach a pod, not, out of necessity. The province in Ontario, I'm in Ontario, I don't know where everyone is on the call, but certainly in the province of Ontario, we already have a shortage with teachers. And certainly in the pod world, and there's quite a bit going on right now with the unions and teachers. So a lot remains to be seen. All this to say, thank you for my rant, all this to say that we really want to redefine who can teach a pod. And so that's why we call it a facilitator, because some pods can be run, like I said, by homeschooling moms. And, we're doing our homeschooling series with Lena. She's amazing. And I know that I would totally have sent my children to her in that case, if this was 20 years ago when we were doing pods. She's not a certified teacher, but she's an avid homeschooling mom. And I think she would have done an incredible job homeschooling my children as well. So parents, I say this all the time. I think homeschoolers have really paved the way for us podders. And those of us who are podding now are homeschooling out of necessity, not necessarily out of philosophy. As the tides are turning in the education system, a lot of us are sort of looking for alternatives. So that's why, we're thinking outside the box. So tutors, retired teachers, really we want to open it up to anyone, and we let facilitators set their own rates. So Learning Pods as an organization does not regulate the price of a facilitator. We kind of decided we would let the market, so to speak, work for itself, and and see, where the demand lies. So there are certainly, OCT teachers that are, you know, so let me rewind. Maybe I'll just skip that. So let me just gather my thoughts. Excuse me. Yes. So, okay, thank you. So with the facilitators, so I feel like I'm just like ranting at screens here. I'm so sorry. Thank you. So what else did I want to say? So yeah, so hiring facilitators. So with some of the older kids, so another thing I want parents to understand, and again, it really depends on what you want out of your pod. So another thing that we provide on the platform and that we ask parents to think about is sort of what kind of day and week do you want for yourself, but also for your kids. So, you know, some parents want to replicate a full day and have their kids in a pod or in some, program from 9 to 3, like a regular school day would have been. Other parents just want part time, and that could be like 9 to 12 daily, or it could mean 9 to 3 twice a week. Um, so these are things that we ask parents to really think about, sort of, what do you want your week to look like? What do you want your child's week to look like? Um, so for families that are doing a 9 to 3 full-time, full day pod, and they want a teacher, they want an OCT teacher, but it feels expensive because many of them are. I want to just, throw this idea out to parents, and we've talked about this a lot, that kids don't need a full day of academic instruction, right? 2 to 3 hours is more than enough, especially depending on the age, of hardcore instruction. So parents could really consider hiring that OCT just for a couple hours a day and having the other 4 to 5 hours be with, maybe a college student who is engaging the students in different activities. And a lot of parents are seeking a more wholesome and holistic curriculum that we don't have in schools these days anyway, like home ec and civics and, things of that nature. So the beauty of pods is we can also really incorporate the things that we value for our children, and we can find like-minded communities who want the same for their children. So again, at Learning Pods, we don't set an overarching framework or curriculum. We want to foster individualism and values that families deem important, and really allowing communities to make those decisions for themselves. So, okay, we can talk a little bit. So we talked about modalities, we talked about, facilitators, we talked a bit about how a schedule could look. And again, this is all very customizable. So we'll touch on legalities a little bit. So, learning pods are born out of a bit of a crisis that we've, been enduring, and it's been a creative way for parents to find a satisfactory alternative. So it's new. So what I want to say is that what we're doing doesn't necessarily have its own definition. And so what we often find ourselves trying to do is squeeze ourselves into various pieces of umbrella legislations. And so if you've been on other calls, you may have heard about the Education Act thrown around. You may have heard about PPM 131 thrown around, which is the homeschooling sort of legislation. And depending on who you ask, some people, feel pods fall more under this purview. Some feel it falls more under that purview. I like to think of it more of a homeschooling collective, for that matter, because it definitely operates sort of a lot like that. So officially, pods are, according to the Education Act, 5 or more school-age children learning together during school hours. Core school subjects would be considered needing to register as a private school. So those few sort of criteria of school age children, meeting during the day, learning core school subjects, um, need to register as a private school. Homeschooling collectives have been operating for a very, very long time. And in a lot of ways, they're just like a pod. They're families that are home educating. So these are not children that are enrolled in the school system. And they do come together in larger group settings to facilitate learning, oftentimes with a hired facilitator. Um, so, and there is also the sort of unlicensed daycare model, which is another sort of umbrella model that people can fit under, which has its own host of requirements and specifications. I actually have a visual for that, not handy, but I can throw it up on the site at some point on the feed. So, and I'll get it up in the help section as well. So people can look at that if they are wanting to make sure that they are fitting themselves into the right umbrella framework. So I think that concludes my little portion on, what is a pod, modalities, etc. And I would love to take a few minutes to give you guys a little tour of how we envisioned our website and our community to really tie all of this together. So I'm going to do a screen share. With my things. I don't know if you guys can see all these little doohickeys everywhere from the Zoom, but they're in my way. Okay, so it's kind of like a bit of a Facebook community in that it's a social media platform. So you can interact with other members in real time and send in-app messaging and group messaging and the like. So it's really a community where you can come on and really engage with people. And I really, really encourage people to do that, to use it to engage, because it's a lot more streamlined than Facebook, where everyone's kind of like, I'm here, I'm there, my kids are this age, my kids are that age, and it all kind of gets lost and yada yada, which is why we built this in the first place, to really try and streamline for parents the process of finding your own community for recreating your education. So this is the news feed. When members join, when you guys join, the first thing that you should do is check out our Steps to Pod page. And I really recommend that all parents sort of log on your computers, not on your phones, because we're not yet an app, though we're working towards that. So it's really better for desktop for now. I just find it's a lot easier to use because it is a very robust platform. There is a lot on here, and it really just functions a lot better on your computer screen. And there's a lot to read and get to know. So it's the kind of thing where you should sit down when you have an hour and really focus on it if you can. That would be great. So we've got in the pod and member search. These are the tools where you can search for existing pods. So people always ask me, is there a pod here? Is there a pod there? Can you help me find a pod? So you can always come and check out these pods map and pods directory. Pods, so in my vision, this is how we will keep track of the pods. So if you are trying to build a pod, or you want to find what pods exist, this is the tool. So if you can't find a pod on either the pods map or the pods directory, then the members map is the really great tool for searching for local like-minded members. And yeah, I don't want to spend too much time on the site, but I really do want to show you guys the members map. And I do think it's really, there's just a few features that I think are really important for you guys to get to know and understand about how to use the tools to really build a pod. So I'm just going to show you the members map. I'm going to quickly show you the regional directory, the regional groups. And I also want to show you how to get your pod up on the platform. So those are the three things I just want to quickly go over. This is why we ask you to provide your postal code. When you do, that maps you out here. Again, postal code is fine. It gives, just a general area. So what we hope our beloved members will do is use the features here, type in your area. We'll do North York. Oh, I should pick a postal code. We'll do M2R, make one up. So we've got all these criteria here on the side that you can use to filter out your search. If you're looking specifically for a teacher, you can click on those. If you're looking specifically for anything, any member type, you would click that. And if you click nothing, you'll get all the member types. And we've also got the pod preferences. So again, these are some of the things we talked about: distance learning pod, etc. So you can click those to find members that are looking for a similar pod type. This only works if members complete their profile. This is why we really, really ask people to take the time and fill this out. Otherwise, it's really hard to search for people that are the right fit. So again, and you don't need to search so refined. You can, or you don't have to. And then you would just press search. It has been acting slightly finicky lately, so let's pray that it serves me well right now. Thank the good Lord above. And this is why also, refining your search is really great, because so I did 10 kilometers from this postal code, and there's quite a lot of people here. Like 119 is people. And so as you zoom in, it gets sort of closer and closer, and you can see the pins more, but each one of these is a member. So you can use that. And you can refine your search. And obviously, if you put in pod preferences, if I put in some of these, it would really, really decrease the number of results that come up. And then you can sort of along the side here, see who's a parent and who is what, and you can click over and you can connect. So that's a really great tool to find people in your area and start building your pod. So yep, I wanted to show you that really fun tool that's really great for connecting with people in your area. And we have like close to 100 people like signing up weekly. So it's, if you check one day and there isn't much going on, and you come back next week, because there's always more happening. This is where I feel we really are a step up above what we can do on Facebook because of this area here. Well, many, many, many reasons, but obviously, this area alone already really refines and defines who you're speaking with and who you're engaging with. So if you're in Halton region, then there's 47 members in there, and you already know that everyone in there is in your region. So that's a much more refined search. Within these groups, you guys there's so much communication that can happen. There's so much potential for these groups. You can also send messages, group or individual, just to the members of the group, etc. There's a map also, so you can see where people are at. And then there's the subgroups tab, which is really the more refined communities. Halton is a big, big place. So if you're in Burlington, if you're in Oakville, and etc. Right now we're building the groups out on demand. So if someone reaches out and they're like, I'm in tiny Ontario, then we'll make tiny Ontario, but we already have tiny Ontario. I just picked something. And then just really quickly, what's supposed to be is once you're in Burlington and you look in the subgroups, then you should be able to find all the Burlington pods. So if people are creating their pod groups and creating them correctly, then any pods in Burlington would be found under the Burlington subgroups tab. Okay, so the last thing I really want to show you was about making a pod. So if you're looking, if you know you want to make a pod, you want a pod, but you're just a parent and you can't host, you don't have a teacher, you don't have other kids, you're like, what do I do? I say you can still come on here and create a group. Put yourself on the map and let people know, hey, I'm here, I'm trying to make this pod. you know, you could really like name it whatever you want. Let's, um, Rachel's pod. And like you'll see, like people are really naming their pods, like Connecting Roots Forest Play, like naming it kind of like a school. Not everyone does that, but often on the group, people are on the platform, a lot of people are doing that. Rachel's pod, JK to grade 2, let's say. I'm just making it up. And then in your group description, you can really let people know what the deal is. Hey, I'm a mom of 3. I have a kid in grade 2. We're looking to set up a pod. We still need a teacher and other students, and yada, yada. So you can definitely come on here and make a group to represent the pod you're trying to build, because you'll see that will put you on the map and it will put you on the directory, and everybody's looking for pods right now. So this is really one of the big steps that we're kind of missing. And that, yeah, in order for people to see the pods that exist, they need to be represented on the platform. And that's not my job, that's yours. So this is the tool to do that. And I just want to see if there's anything else I want to tell you about it. I don't know if I should. Yeah, and then so you would just kind of go through the steps of setting up the group, and it's all pretty basic. The only thing that's a little bit difficult is right at the bottom here. So if you're a parent setting up a pod and you're in Ontario, then you would have to write that here. It says optional, but it's not. No, I'm joking. Right? If you're in New Brunswick, then you do New Brunswick. And the reason for this is because then it filters your pod into the right places. You don't want people from, you know, British Columbia trying to get into your pod in Ontario. That's just frustrating for everyone. But where it really gets tricky is this part. And I guess I'll just run through it since we're recording and other people will watch this. And I really want people to know this. So if you're setting up your pod, and I showed you when we were in the region, and I said, once you're in Burlington and your pod should go here, right? So if you are setting up a pod in Burlington, you're gonna search and you're gonna click Burlington, okay? And that's gonna nest your pod right under the Burlington community. Okay, so that was what I want to show you there. I'll also go over, we have this area in member services. There's a lot of really great tools here as well. Oh, here you can go also to create your group. So I advise everyone to use sort of these 3 things right here in addition to the tools in pod and member search. So create your group, but you can also post a listing. So that's just another really great tool to try to get the word out for whatever you're looking for, and anyone can post a listing. And we also have forums, which is a really great way to just post questions, get answers, absolutely anything education related, child related, pod related, you name it, share resources, etc. And last but not least, I'll go through this area. So we've got a few tools here for parents to really secure their pod. So you can verify your profile. Right now, the way that we're asking teachers or pod hosts to verify their profile is through a background check, which can be done straight through the platform. And we are also, and for parents, so that's not going to change because and it's optional, but background checks are really important when we're, you know, dealing with children. Again, it's optional, but if that's something that's important to you as an educator to have, or as a parent, you know, for your teacher to have, that's here. So once teachers do that, they can get verified. We also ask pod hosts to do that because you're having children into your home. So we ask that as well, but this is optional. You can't get verified if you don't do it. For parents, we ask them to upload a piece of ID. You can also just email it to me. Again, it's just for security, but we're probably also going to add a referral verification. So if you bring in a member and you know them and you can verify them, then we're considering that as an option as well. And the reason, again, that we're doing this is because, you know, these are our kids, and we are, you know, we're sort of reaching outside of our communities, building new communities. these are options. We're all about options and supporting people how we can. And that's why we also have insurance, totally optional. If your homeowner's insurance doesn't cover you as a pod host, then we have this option available. It is a one-time fee for the year, and I think it's about $1,000. It covers up to 10 children, and it is done through Hewwood Insurance. We also have, move this little thing over here, pod agreements. So yeah, you know, you're making a pod and you're ready to go. You want to finalize. So we've got this customizable contract that you can generate here. We've got all these steps laid out about sort of how to go through it. It's all customizable. It would be sent to all the members of your pod and signed, and then stored for you. I mean, then you would have that access. And like I said, this is done through DocuSign. So it's just a really quick, easy way to get all the terms out on paper. Just trying to think, do you guys want to see the contract? Like, see a sample contract? Well, you can, any of you can go and check it out. It's there. So if you want to see it, you can just go ahead and do that. Is there anything else that I wanted to show you in here? No. Oh, we're still in here. Oh, and one more thing that's here. So we do have also interviewing templates. So if you've never done this before and you have no idea what you're doing, then you can come on and use these templates as a tool to help guide you through the process of getting to know podmates. We just listed out a bunch of questions that we think it's important for you to ask right off the bat to make sure that everyone is aligned. So that's there. We've got one for parents, one for teachers, and one for pod hosts. They're customizable, and you can actually send them to your podmates to fill in. We sort of have that all set up as well. So you can use those how you like, if you like. And I did want to show you one more thing. There's so much. Okay, we also have the calendar. I want you guys to use that. It's super fun. It's super awesome. And like, if you're starting a pod and you want to have an open house, put it up on here if you want to. If you're having a play date in your area and you want to get to know members in your area, use this event calendar. So anyone can submit an event onto the calendar. Could be free or a paid event, could be an online or an in-person event. So that's just a really great tool to help us kind of coordinate, organize, stay in touch with what's going on. I think it's really great for businesses that are on here that want to utilize that as well. And we also have a really fun marketplace. Anything that you purchase from there so far is the only thing that helps Learning Pods make a little bit of money. So if you do buy stuff from there, it supports us. So that's awesome. And that's basically to wrap up on the platform. So I hope I didn't rush that. I'm going to stop my screen share and check out the questions. And just also really quickly along the side, when you're on the news feed, you have really quick access to the calendar right here. You've got really quick access to all of the listings along the other side. And you can also get really quick, easy access to the group directory along here. Oh, see, there's the pod I made. I didn't save it, but it was there anyway. So that's cool. Sorry, I got busy reading someone's post. Okay, so that is the site. And yeah, when you join a group, then anytime someone posts in that group, it comes up on your main feed. So as I'm in the Learning Pods account right now, I'm in every single group. So anytime anyone posts, it's on my feed. But your feed should be custom to the groups that you're in and the connections that you have on your end. That concludes the screen share portion of the call. Hope I didn't lose y'all. So I'm going to go through the questions a little bit. Sorry, guys, just reading. I see a lot of people introducing themselves. Notes need to be reposted for latecomers. We're going to post the call. Nice to meet all you guys. Thanks for posting all where you're from. This is so awesome. 4 and 2, awesome. York Region, teacher, mom of a 10-year-old. Continue homeschooling, considering leaving the profession, starting a pod at home next year. I think that's a really great idea. It's such a win-win and kind of a no-brainer for teachers. I mean, if they can, I don't know for teachers if they feel like teaching their own kids is the same as teaching others. But I mean, it's definitely a model to consider if you're dissatisfied with the profession at the moment. It's great. And if you can host it and you can keep your kid in that, then I mean, you're really winning. Any facilitators in Oxford County? Erica, go on the pod map, type in your postal code, type in how far you're willing to look, and click facilitator host. And that should help you out a lot in that way. And also, if anyone does know any facilitators in the Oxford County or London area, please tell them to log on to the site so that we can help connect everyone. Rhonda, preschool and up and kids with special needs. That's super great. Thank you for mentioning hybrid. That is another very good point, and I meant to touch on that. Hybrids can look a million different ways, so absolutely. Have a facilitator present while learning online, so there's supervised breaks. You also teach yoga and swimming. Fantastic, thank you. That's super great. Elementary teacher. Ooh, I love how many teachers are on here looking to start a pod in Milton. I meet so many people. I know there are several moms in Milton that have been dying to start a pod for some time. Jennifer Spinoza, Lee. So guys, go on and check out Milton. And if you're a facilitator, start a pod. If you guys want to start a pod, make a group, please. And let people know in your group that you're a yoga instructor, that you're a medical, like Reiki, like all of this. It's so great. Let us know on the platform. Coburg, my son is 16. It's nice to see more high school parents catching on. How do I find the platform? Is it on Facebook? It is its own site. It is learningpodscanada.com. It does not cost money to join our site. The site itself is completely free, so you don't have to pay to join. If you want to hire a teacher, that will cost you money, but that is not, Learning Pods does not set the rates for the teacher. We are not, obligating you to hire a teacher for pay. That is completely up to you. How do we get this school curriculum that needs to be taught, especially for high school students? Jody, I recommend you join our homeschooling series. One of the last sessions is going to be pertaining specifically to high school with Lena, who's a high schooling mom, and her daughter, Rachel, who's going to attend, who's currently in high school and being homeschooled. They've got a lot of really great info, and I'm preparing some additional resources that Lena isn't familiar with to include. I know that the district school board has an online component that is completely free for high school students. The name is escaping me, so if anybody knows it, throw it in the chat. I forget the name of the program, but it's completely free, so you can use that for your high school curriculum. But I definitely recommend joining that session. If you haven't seen the flyer circulating for the homeschooling series, then join our Telegram, join our Facebook, follow on Insta, get on the platform. We're posting these things everywhere we can. For parents looking to start a pod, what would the industry standard for pricing for having children come to your pod? Parents looking to start a pod, what would be the industry standard for pricing? So again, there is no industry standard, guys. This is a new thing. This is a new thing. And can I see a show of hands? Are there any OCTs on the call? Just the emoji. I'm kind of messing with you, but I am curious to know if we have any OCTs on the call. So we got 1, we got 2. All right. So, it's definitely hard to compete with the really comfortable setup that, teachers have with benefits and with their salaries and whatnot. And so it's a difficult time in this very weird period of OCTs deciding what they're willing to charge, what's acceptable for parents. And so this is actually very, very new and uncharted waters. So there, in my opinion, there is no industry standard. But again, it really depends on who you're hiring. But also, and I'm also actually, as I'm reading this again, I'm not sure if your question is specific to the teacher. Is Nadia a teacher? Or if you're asking because you're a host. I do believe that a host could also charge. Like if you are hosting a pod every day in your home, and you're a pod host, we definitely have the option for you to charge. We give you a spot on your profile to determine whether or not you want to charge. That could be $1 a day to $10. Like there is no industry standard, and I can't set the rate for that. It really depends on your families. It depends on you. It depends on so many things. And again, I'm going to be putting together a bit of a list that families can go through to help them assess and organize their own thoughts about how to really make certain decisions around what to charge, what to budget, all these sorts of things. So to add to Nadia's question, what would a certified teacher charge per hour per day? I know of one teacher who's charging $75 per hour per day, and she has been doing that successfully with her families all last year. I guess there's a market for that. That's and then there are other teachers that are charging. For example, Sabrina in Burlington, she's charging $1,400 per month. I think that boils down to about $10 per hour per student is how she's divvying it up. So there's been some chatter about that on the Facebook group. You can definitely look onto that thread. We're watching people figure it out in real time, and it's quite interesting. What are the numbers for capacity for an in-home learning pod or homeschool co-op? Well, it depends if you're calling it a homeschool co-op. Okay, let's come back to that one. Like I mentioned earlier, 5 and above is to register for a private school. I've actually been learning quite a bit lately in a little bit of a different area. I've been very focused on understanding the Education Act as it pertains to private schools, and spent less time focused on PPM 131, the homeschooling memorandum, and I'm really dabbling in that a lot more, and it's kind of opening up a lot of doors. So it's shifting perspectives, and so that is why I kind of was like, I'll come back to that. But there's still a lot to be navigated there. How do parents make sure that the pods they send their kids to are safe, besides doing a background check? How do we ensure people aren't coming in and out of the house with access to the children? So great question, Nadia. So first of all, this is where, again, the the templates really, really come in handy. And we actually thought a lot about this stuff and included a lot of it in our terms and conditions on the website. It's a long read. I did go through that with a couple of lawyers to make sure that it was sound. So what it says in the terms, first of all, but really it really comes down to parents interacting with one another, is defining those terms, number one. But if you are setting up a pod in someone's home, I think as a parent, it would definitely need to be out on the table that you as the parent have access to enter that home at any given time. So that is number one as well. If you are applying for our insurance, I would say the insurance is another really great route to add that level of security. Because once you go through the insurance, there's quite a number of um, things needed, information to, not, it's not a crazy amount, but we really go through quite a number of things pertaining to this. Um, and it asks, who else is in the home and things of that nature. But it really comes down to a parent's comfort level and discretion at the same time. Currently, we as Learning Pods, I and us as an organization, we do not go in and drop into people's homes. I would say that's your duty as a parent, to get to know who you're with and feel comfortable and make sure that it's a space that you're able to enter at any time. Thank you, Alex, for throwing our thing for throwing the site in the chat. Do you have to mark assignments and give marks in the pods, or can you, as the facilitator, say, as long as the children have a good understanding, they're good to go to the next grade? That's a really great question. Um, So it depends on you and your pod, to be honest, again. And I hate to always say that, but it's really, really true because it's not one size fits all. So every facilitator, every educator, and all parents are going to have their opinions on this. Standardized testing, are these things good? Are they not? These are age old debates. What is important, yes, is making sure children have a good understanding before going to the next grade, which sometimes our own public schools fail us in. Oftentimes they're passing kids along when they absolutely do not have a good grasp of the current modules. So I would say the most important thing in leveling up is understanding your child's comprehension and seeing that they do understand and comprehend what's expected of them. And you can use the Ontario curriculum as that benchmark. And it's been said time and again, it's a relatively low bar. It's a relatively low bar. So I hope that answers your question. No, you mentioned that if you have a question, you could totally throw it in the chat. And then after I get through the chat, I'll actually open it up for people to speak. I know you mentioned if a pod has 5 students and up, it would need to be registered, but what if it is less? Then it does not need to be registered if it's less. Okay, I think that was it. I think I made it to the end of the questions. Awesome. So on that note, does anybody have any other questions, or would you like to share, talk? I'd love to just open up the floor for anyone on the call. And if not, we can